Hey community, we've got a great interview for you today. Chris Brown from Elevation Worship joins the podcast. He sits down with Matt to talk about songwriting, advice for worship leaders, and Elevation's new music. You can download all of the master multi-tracks for Elevation Worship's entire catalog now on loopcommunity.com. Enjoy the interview.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Loop Live. My name is Matt McCoy. I'm the founder of loopcommunity.com and the host of the Loop Live show. And today we have a very special guest. We have Chris Brown from Elevation Worship. I am really excited to talk with him about Elevation, but also just about his story as a worship leader. So if you've got any questions or comments, type them down into the chats wherever you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, and we might take some live questions. We'll see. But anyways, I'm really excited about this conversation. So what are we waiting for? Let's go ahead and bring in Chris Brown. Chris, what's up, man?
How you doing?
So good to see you, man. I'm very thankful that you would take the time to join us on the show today. And I've been a big fan of Elevation Worship. I was thinking about my first exposure to Elevation was in like 2010 when someone in my worship band came to me and he's like, hey, there's a song I just heard that we have to play at this young adult ministry that we used to lead worship at. And it was Give Me Faith. And I think Kingdom Come was also on the record. And he's like, we have to do these songs. And that was my first time ever hearing Elevation. And I remember just being like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And we did it. We played those songs for like 3 or 4 years constantly.
Oh, man.
Do you remember that? Do you guys ever play those songs anymore from that record?
We don't. Yeah. No, I haven't. I don't think if you gave me a guitar right now, I could find my way through Kingdom Come.
Yeah. Your will be. Yeah. Dude, that's such a great song. But anyways, so the last time I saw you, it was probably like a decade ago when I came down to the Matthews campus at Elevation, and we just it was you were there, but some of the other guys from Elevation Worship were all there, and we just kind of played with Ableton Live for a bit and talked about tracks, and it was a good time. But a lot has changed since then, and
that would have probably been you introducing us, I'm sure, to Ableton altogether. I don't know that. You know what we did before that? We used QuickTime. And our drummers would have files. If we were doing a 4-song set, they would have 4 different files opened on their desktop. And this on Sunday live, they'd hit the space bar to fire one. And then when I don't imagine we were using actual tracks then. I could be wrong. I'm sure it was just click, and QuickTime was just for click and setting the tempo, and then they space bar that one, have to scroll over, hit the next file. Dude, we were Stone Age, and I'm sure you coming in was introducing us to all things Ableton.
That is so awesome.
It's worked out well.
And are you guys still using Ableton?
We are.
Yep.
Do you know Jonathan Mix?
Yep.
Yeah, he's a wizard at it and has really helped us, to my knowledge, utilize it really well. I think he does a great job, but I'm ignorant to so many things Ableton as well. Unfortunately, we have the right people around us to.
Well, yeah, and with Jonathan, like you guys have also, I think you were doing some really edgy stuff early on of even keeping campuses in sync with a track over Ableton Live on a network, and pretty geeky, nerdy stuff. But I wanted to first just like start off with, you're talking to a bunch of worship leaders here who are watching this, and I would love to know just a little bit more about your personal story. Like, how long have you been leading worship, and how did that start? Like, how did you get even into leading worship?
Yeah, so I grew up in church. My dad was a worship pastor, and grew up around music, grew up in a small local church environment. My aunts, uncles, my grandparents on my mom's side, all in ministry, full-time ministry. My sister married a youth pastor. Like, I'm just surrounded by it, and have just really have a rich heritage in my family of ministers. And So
Is your dad still doing music?
he's a part of our no, not full time, but he's a part of our Elevation Columbia, which is in South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina campus, which is really cool. He retired a few years back, and then
Yeah.
he hopped into to serving there and leads an E group, our small group, and is loving kind of having a different seat in ministry. You know,
It's got to be
after
pretty awesome for him also just to watch you kind of take that torch and run with it.
I guess
You know?
so. I think so. Yeah. I mean, I'm standing on his shoulders, and not just musically speaking, but he and my mom never put pressure on me at all to go into ministry. They never put pressure on me to pursue music. They did an awesome job of just fostering like what I was passionate about. Like I think season over season. So when I was a kid, I was passionate about baseball.
Yeah.
And so my dad was not passionate about baseball, but he would get out there and throw with me and go to my games, um, and then eventually that turned into loving music and starting to write when I was a teenager. So I think to more of your question though, when did I start leading? I started leading in college, and had a great mentor who just he he would have me show up on Tuesdays and Wednesdays to start. This was like when they would. Maybe a lot of people still do this. We don't do this anymore. But he would have me print off chord charts so that I could get them ready for the band rehearsal and set up
Yeah.
the printouts on music stands at their band rehearsal. And that moved into charting the songs, and that's I would just be around, man. I just wanted to be in the environment and wanted to soak up as much as possible. I would sit there after, I ran cables and set up music stands, and I would sit there and just watch them rehearse and listen to see how he steered the rehearsal and how he led, I started leading for youth group, um, and so I fell in love with it, and I've known Pastor Stephen since we were teenagers. He and I were in bands together, um, and so when he started the church, I heard immediately about it. We had kept in touch a little bit through college, but heard that he moved to Charlotte to start the church, and my wife and I moved up like 9 months into Elevation starting, and
Yeah.
been here since and trying to grow and steward it, man.
It's wild, man. It's so awesome. You'd say that you started off printing off chord charts, and it's funny because just last week I had a conversation with someone. Well, I was remembering you and I are probably similar in age. You might remember this, but like how a computer you right click and you've got cut and paste. Like I
Yep.
remember when I was a kid in youth group making like chord charts, I would actually like legit cut and paste. Like I would print off a song, cut it out, put it on a copier and shrink it down, like do like the 70%
Yes,
printout.
dude.
And then you
Whoa.
literally paste it to another sheet. So you've got two songs on one sheet and then copy that one. Do you remember that? Or am
That's
I way older
crazy.
than you?
No, well, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. I was trying to make a
And I feel like,
two-column chord chart.
oh, okay. I was trying to figure out why you did that from a functionality standpoint, because I'm sure I did that um, in some fashion, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever did. That makes perfect
I was
sense. So
trying to get two songs on one sheet. So
got
then you're
it.
not having to like flip so much, but you have to shrink the songs down. And that was before
Right.
like, fancy software now where it just does it automatically for these
Tracking.
kids. But
Whoa.
anyways, that's cool
Yep.
that was your beginning. So
Yeah.
so you go with Pastor Stephen, you start leading at Elevation. And I'm sure you've seen that place change so much over the years. How have you personally grown as a worship leader and a songwriter since you joined Elevation? Like from that point on, like how would you say is like you've actually changed the most as a worship leader?
Man, I've been here 15 years, so it's good grief. I couldn't remember. we were talking about that song Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember that far back on a song. It's I'm sure there will be so much that I'll forget, but I don't know. I think hopefully I've stayed adaptable and willing to change through the years. I think the landscape has changed so much with what worship music is, even over the last few years, but definitely since 2006, 2007, when I started leading here. I think I think we have as a ministry has we have aimed to stay authentic season over season to who we are based on who we have in our ministry or who's around us or um, even who God brings us in regards to like other friends that have, started coming in and out of our ministry over the last couple of years, um, but I think it's a balance of I hopefully I have learned through the years how to balance being influenced by the people in our church,
Mm.
which is a very diverse church. Young, old, white, black, Hispanic, very churchy people, very street people. I think it's important that we and I have tried our best to stay authentic to who's under our leadership. Um, but while understanding that we're in a very privileged position to also influence what our people view worship
Yeah.
is, and certainly what a worship song is. That's something that I've tried to not carry lightly over the last several years. Is um, the the position of influence God has continued to give us to carry that and influence others. And I think what's beautiful is it's a little bit of both like that I think we're trying to balance, like current culture of our church informing the types of songs that we write,
Yeah.
balanced with us wanting to challenge maybe what people's mindset of a worship song, or even just challenging what people get comfortable with or their preferences of what they
Yeah.
want to hear or like to hear in a worship song or in a worship set. So hopefully I've grown in my understanding of how important something like that is
Yeah.
to carry and steward. And part of the I love even this is kind of a whole other thing, but like I love part of the writing process that or even the production process or when you discover in a live atmosphere at church when you hear a voice that takes a song somewhere new.
Hmm.
So years ago I would have just been like, man, there's so many songs that I dearly love, and it doesn't matter whose voice is singing that song. If it's a guy singing that song, a girl singing that song,
Yeah.
I'm gonna love that song. And I think some songs are meant to be that way and grace to be that way. I also think it's cool though, like as I've grown over the last 15 years writing and the types of songs we've written, playing with like there are some songs that a certain voice will always be intrinsically tied to that song, and a certain voice from a production standpoint or
Yeah.
I don't even want to over spiritualize it, but I'll say like an anointing on the song because of that voice will take a song somewhere that
Yeah.
that it may have never gone before. And I've loved discovering that, and it has helped me knowing that it has helped me not ever get too precious with like
Hmm.
who's singing what, or
Yeah.
I want to sing this, or because
Yeah.
there's just too many examples of songs that I know without a shadow of a doubt, like they were
Yeah.
meant to carry that song, like
Yeah.
that. Their voice unlocked what no one
Yeah.
else could. You know what I'm saying? So,
Oh yeah, a great example of that is I think Naomi Rain on Gyra in the bridge of that.
yes.
I mean, I feel like that's such a unique. I mean, that's such a great bridge of a song, whatever you want to call it, a bridge, an outro, or whatever. But and a lot of it's so good that probably anybody could sing it. It'd be great. But there's something very special about her voice. It's like a signature on there.
Yeah.
That
Yeah. We've had totally, and we've been privileged over the last few years in particular to like just um, start writing more and more with other friends that
yeah
aren't necessarily here in Charlotte, but and then the songs that come from that, like it just makes sense that
yeah
they would be a part of recording that and carrying that song, if you will.
yeah
Um, and it's been really special. It's like to see our ministry kind of be somewhat of a um, launching pad for songs with
yeah.
others attached to them. But it's
Is
been
it?
really cool.
Would you say is it challenging now, like to go into songwriting sessions, just knowing like everyone's going to expect the next blessing or Gyra or like what tips would you have for songwriters who are you
Yeah,
know
I don't know. I mean, it's definitely in the back of my mind, and I, I I think it would be hard for anybody, any
yeah
creative writer or whatever, to pretend like that's not there. But um, Pastor Stephen talks about this all the time when whether we go into, it's not like we talk about it at the top of any right now, but it's certainly just always in the conversation of like, man, we can't ever chase like what that was, because that existed and lived and was created in a moment that can never be recreated. So why bother? And the blessing, for instance, as you mentioned, that it didn't come out because we were chasing something before the blessing.
right
um, we weren't trying to recreate a sound or a song, and
yeah
Gyra certainly wasn't wasn't because we were after something. That was a nonstop. The day we wrote that, we had never written with Chandler or Naomi, and we went into we were in this house with several others from our team and Mav's team, and there were different writing groups happening, and we were actually in a basement of the house. But we went down there and we didn't really come up for air for like 8 hours. Like that day was one nonstop, but it was, the music didn't stop and the writing didn't stop. And we got to the end of that day and realized like, oh, we got to piece some of this together, because Gyra, like you were just mentioning, is a bridge, the outro. What is it? It's got like,
yeah
7 different movements or vamps or whatever.
yeah yeah
We got to the end of that and had to figure out like, we have Gyra, and we also had this on that album called Shall Not Want. They were kind of, they were being written at the same time. We didn't even see them as two songs. It's not like we said, oh, we just
yeah
wrote a song and we're going to call it Gyra, and now we're going to move on to the next. It was like one nonstop 7-8 hours of just music coming, and then we actually had to piece together like, what should the bridge be, like which one of these movements
yeah
should be considered the bridge. And it was fun, and we had never written that way. We had never written in such a quote unquote unstructured fashion.
yeah
So I think like, yes, the pressure's kind of, it exists in the back of your mind, but at the same time, if you just stop long enough to go, well, any song that I won't even say that God's given influence to, I'll just say that we love personally, any song that I've walked away
yeah
loving, whether it has, influence or
yeah
not. At least now I'm also standing on enough history of songs being written like that I love, because they came from a pure place of like, no, we weren't actually chasing something else. It's just, we were
yeah.
in the moment.
What is like your favorite song right now? What song are you like totally loving to lead right now at Elevation?
I mean, we it's weird. We kind of we we have songs that'll sit around for quite some time, but I would still think like Same God, even though we've led that song in
Yeah.
church now for over a year. It's been out for maybe 6 months. It
Yeah.
still feels fresh. We did a August tour run, and seeing Night After Night too, like when the bass hook starts, which shout out to Shay Wooten, our amazing bass player, for him to write a bass hook that starts a
Yeah.
song. Like I don't know many songs that actually start with bass guitar and it's a hook.
Right.
Um, but it was really cool. It's really cool to see a song like that connect with so many people. And so I would say Same God right now, like still in church. I led it just this past Sunday.
I did too.
Did you?
Yeah. It is such a great song, man. That bridge is just killer. And then the chord change at the very last part of the bridge.
Yeah.
Just lifts it like up even more. Like it's a good song.
Thank you, man.
What do you guys only, I'm just curious, do you guys only do Elevation songs at church, or do you ever like throw in other stuff, like a Bethel or Hillsong?
Yeah. No, we throw in other songs. Actually just today was kind of thinking through this coming Sunday, and I'm putting in Goodness of God in the set, which is maybe one of my favorite songs to just listen to still. It's been around a few years now, but it's just so good. And we may go into, we're planning to introduce a brand new song that we wrote a couple weeks ago, called Look Again. And I think Surrounded is going to be a perfect tag out of that. And so we try to mix it up. I mean, we do a lot of our originals, but there's just too many other good songs out there that are in the church to not be singing those.
Yeah. So there was a video posted recently of you guys playing a live acoustic set, and technical difficulties happen to everybody. Every worship leader watching this knows exactly like this kind of stuff that can happen, and you don't even know why. It just happens, and then you dig it up later. But so your keyboard player lost the click in his ears during the set, and on the video you're like hitting the keyboard, like giving him the tempo, like with your hand, which is, it's hilarious to watch. And you like start with a light tap, and then as you're like hitting it really hard. Tell us about what was happening in that moment, and then I would love to know like what tips do you have for handling a technical issue when you're leading?
Yeah, well, we started that acoustic set in the night with we have a song called Million Little Miracles, and so we started with that, and it starts with just keys, and there was just Scotty on keys, Joey on acoustic, and then E on acoustic. So and Scotty's driving most of that set. So right into Million Little Miracles, like the click fires, but Scotty takes his time starting. So I'm like, all right. I mean, I guess he'll come in at some point. Not too long, not like where it's weird, but just enough to know he's normally in by now.
Yep.
And then he comes in, and it's like nowhere near. It's like in tempo, but it's not with the click. It's on like the off or whatever, and then it starts to fluctuate a little bit. And so I'm like, his pack's not loud enough or whatever. But we make it through a verse and chorus. And then I think after chorus 1, I think we got on at some point during verse and chorus. And then he takes a turn just himself after chorus 1. And then it was just completely off again. And I was like, oh, he doesn't have click. So I just started tapping, and the rest of us all had click, and come to find out. So what's going through my mind the whole time is like, surely our amazing monitors guy Pat is gonna hear this, and like he'll know, like, oh, Scotty's off, or EJ Mix or somebody, and they'll just send him click. I didn't know what it was. I just knew like he can't hear something. So so yeah, I mean, we just had to keep trucking, and we made it through the whole set.
Was it just click, or did you have tracks too?
No tracks in that.
Okay, that's good, because that could have been a disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. So we make it through the acoustic set, which is probably, I don't know, 15 minutes or so, and it was all fine once he was following me at some point, but for the most part, once you've got strumming acoustic in, which Joey and E both had click, so they're on. Yeah. And Scotty's following he's following the vocals, he's following the strummings. But we make it through that, and then we kind of stay at the B stage moment, but the full band joins for Gyra. And so when it wasn't awkward because everybody in the room stands, I made my way back to a talkback mic and said, "Hey guys," talking to just our sound engineers, like, "Hey, Scotty doesn't have click. Can y'all get him some click?" And that was also routed to Scotty's ears. So he heard me say that, and he said, "Oh, I thought none of us had click this whole time." So he went the whole set thinking we're just all in this together, and nobody has click, and it's an Ableton issue as opposed to like an ears issue. And so it just turns out like his pack got swapped with someone else's. So his click was technically being sent to Scotty's pack. Scotty just didn't have Scotty's pack. So yeah, totally. Things like that happen all the time, and we made it through. I don't think too many people would have known, and it just so happened that our social person Sam, she had set up that little 360 camera. That's the only time she set it up. And when we got off, I told her, I was like, "Well, hey, let's try it another night. It'll be cool," because that was kind of a disaster since Scotty didn't have click. Yeah. And then she cut it up in a funny way and showcased what she showcased in it. So
I loved it. I love the part of the clip where like Scotty's eyes like go sideways, like he's looking at your hand tapping, and he's right. So did he probably caught what you were doing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because then you were making it really obvious at one point.
Yeah, he knew, but he just thought I was keeping time for everyone because he just didn't think any of us had click. So he's like, "Well, Chris is just trying to set the tempo for everybody."
Yeah. That's so good. So my I got two more questions.
All right.
What's some advice you would give a worship songwriter who wants their songs to be heard? So they're writing songs, but they want them to be heard. Like what advice would you give? Because we've got worship leaders, songwriters watching this. What would you say?
Man, I would say I've talked to other writers and worship leaders about this, but don't equate success with visibility. I don't want to sound deflective like with my answer, but you should decide early on, like right now, that your motive for writing songs comes from, not being able to, like, your motive for writing songs can't be for other people to hear them. Your motive deep down can't be like the drive to like get your songs out. Your motive for writing songs has to come from like you feel on mission and you feel called to do that. And that doesn't need to take the drive away or the passion away to work strategically to get your songs out or to put into practice and that strategic part of your brain and get your team lined up and get vision, turned into action. But don't let your driving motivation to write songs be for others to hear them or churches to sing them. Because if so, then all of us, we'll just go home and lick our wounds when we think like success means people are singing my songs, or success means I'm, I've influenced, this many people, or I'm in front, or the song I wrote, did this, met
Yeah.
this metric. I don't know that I'm your gotta give everybody 3 steps on, how to have a song become influential. But we were talking about our early stuff. I mean, we wrote 3 albums that no one's ever heard, from like
Yeah.
early years, and eventually, without strategy or without a
Yeah.
marketing plan, one song started to raise its hand, and garner some
Was that
attention.
Give Me Faith?
Yeah, it was "Give Me Faith," and that one song, like, it opened a few doors for us that we prayed about walking through, and we did, and then we had, I think we did make another album after that I don't think, gained too much traction or attention after that. um, but we just stayed committed to writing songs because we had vision from Pastor Stephen to write for our church, not
Yeah.
vision to write songs that would become widely heard or sung, and certainly not to like, go out there and get awards or accolades or whatever. We were writing because we were called to do it. And so I think, again, I don't want to give like a deflective answer, like, thanks for not answering that question. But I just do. I think like the motivation is everything. And I couldn't even trace back with you, like, so then in 2012 we put this plan in place to
Yeah.
get the song heard. It's just been like, stay stay focused and stay committed on what we really feel called to do, and steward that the very best we can in that season. And don't get ahead of yourself, and don't think like you have to. Don't compare yourself to other songs or other ministries. That's a bottomless pit that you'll just dig yourself into. And just stay focused on who you're called to serve in your ministry. And I can't wait to hear over the next decade and more, like, the songs that keep coming from churches. But I think like the church just needs to continue to bring pure songs and authentic songs to the table. And so don't equate success looks like visibility. Success looks like this metric.
Yeah.
Success looks like this, getting on this playlist.
Yeah.
And just let God breathe on what he breathes on.
That's good, man. So my last question is similar, and it might even have a similar answer. But let's just say you're sitting down for coffee with like a 16-year-old kid who's just starting to lead worship with their church, and they're like, Chris, what advice would you give me if I'm wanting to go down this road of leading worship?
I would say, don't have your aim. Don't try to be impressive. Be effective. If you stay focused on serving people on your team this week, you're going to see the fruit from it. If you don't have a team, just stay focused on serving those faithful people that are showing up each Sunday, and stay faithful serving them by, creating a great set list and bringing the best musical offering you can bring to those that God's entrusted to your leadership. And I think when you let too much creep into your psyche or your motivation of, well, I need to get myself out there, I need to be like, impress others. When that creeps in too much, then your focus gets taken away from just simply like serving who God's given you in this season, in this moment, this week. And when you do serve them, like, then at least in my story and season over season for me, when I've focused on, well, this is what I can bring and this is what I can do, and I'm going to keep my head down and stay after, like, not trying to chase numbers or metrics or chase being impressive, then, like, I find serving the right motives has made me more effective, in the long run. And I hope our church would speak for that. But I do think, like, you'll see so much fruit just week in and week out, like, not growing weary in serving those around you. So
Yeah, man, that's so good. I just had a really quick random question pop in my head. If for some reason you couldn't lead worship anymore, couldn't do music anymore, what would you do? What's something you'd be interested in doing?
Our family this summer went to this ranch in Montana that had no cell service and no Wi-Fi. We were there for a week, like, literally off the grid. And the people who work in this ranch, they work there 6 months, basically 6 months out of the year. You can't work there in the wintertime because the roads are closed. You can't get in or out. But they basically go up there and they say bye to like family, friends. Like, I'll talk to you in 6 months. That sounds amazing to me.
Yeah,
being that off the grid, that's my answer. I'm work on a
that
ranch.
would be amazing.
I don't know anything how to work on a ranch. I don't think I have calloused enough hands, but
it would be so freeing. I totally agree with you on that. Well, Chris, I appreciate you taking the time to join us for this. I speak for myself, and I'm sure for many other worship leaders in that. Just, I'm so thankful for what you're doing, right? The songs you're writing. I see firsthand every week how your songs are impacting my church. Like, I recently heard Chris Tomlin say something about like how songs are life rafts for people. And I see that every single week. Like, songs, there's certain songs that just people cling to, and then they keep listening to it over and over and over, and it helps them through some sort of season. And I know that many, many, many Elevation songs are in that category. And so I just am thankful for what you're doing as a worship leader. Thank you. Thanks for the songs you're writing and for taking the time to pour into the worship leaders at CCLI and Loop Community today.
Thanks for having me, man. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Honored to be on.
Good to see you again.
You too, Matt.
All right. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Take care.
All right, you guys. Really great conversation with Chris from Elevation Worship. Write down in the comments what's one thing you're walking away from this interview with. What's one thing that stood out to you? Love to hear from you. Maybe write down in the comments too, what's your favorite Elevation worship song? What is a song that really has impacted your church and your worship leading? Love to hear from you. As always, hit the subscribe button or the like button wherever you're watching this from, so you stay tuned for more future shows. And thanks for joining us. Thanks for being a part of the community. Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt. Thanks so much for listening. Hey, let us know what you thought. Write down in the comments wherever you're listening, watching from, what you thought. Make sure you send us a message. Subscribe to our channel, YouTube, Facebook, and stay tuned for more from Loop Community.